it really came stateside. As soon as it hit New York, I bounced. I came down to Florida.
Yeah. What day? Do you guys remember the day you guys really took it serious? How about for you, Chris?
Shoot, it was March. Let me pull up my calendar real quick. I think it was the 17th was when I flew down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they closed gyms the 17th.
That's
like gyms and like a non-essential stuff in New York, and I was like, all right, I got no reason to be here.
So that was St. Patty's Day for you, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mine was the week before, March 11th. No, March 12th. It was that night, Thursday night. They canceled classes that next day, so I had classes the 11th, and then the 12th they sent us a message at like 9:00 at night saying no classes on Friday, and then suspended everything for the month. And then we started at the beginning of this month.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's gone in like waves and sectors psychologically. Like my girlfriend, she's very intelligent, and she comes from an Italian immigrant family to Australia. So both of her parents are immigrants, and they kind of could be a little bit of, how do I say? I was self-isolating because of her. I think the first week, like March 2nd, because she saw it coming, and my whole gym stayed open for another 10 days. And the health club I work at, first case of Corona in Australia was at my gym, and they didn't even tell us. They didn't tell us for a week.
That's crazy.
It was crazy, man. But do you guys know anyone who has it?
My mother.
What? Chris's mom.
Damn, is she okay?
Yeah, she's good. She's good. She works in the hospital system, so she works in administrative in the ER on Long Island, and so it's a pretty busy hospital. It's in the heart of Long Island. Huntington is my hometown. It's a big place, and she's been working this whole time, and I've been telling her like stay home, mom. This is a different thing. She said no, they need me. So she started showing some kinds of symptoms. She was feeling really like down, whatever, and tired. Having some gastrointestinal stuff. She told her superiors, and they were like, all right, go home. We'll test you, and then we'll find out. 2 days later, she got the test results, COVID-19. She spent about a week being sick, and then she's fine. Now she's going back to work on Monday. They're like, we need you back.
Yeah, Johnny, did you ever have Tony Ricci on your show by any chance?
Man, he's in my notes. No, never had him on.
I know. I just talked to him today. We were just having a conversation. He just got over it as well. So he's on Long Island as well. So him as well.
New York seemed to get it. I mean, due to living circumstance, so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm on Long Island. It's a little more spread out. Like New York City got hit really bad. My brother is NYPD in Brooklyn, and he said it's a nightmare. And I have friends who are in the hospitals there, and it was like wartime hospitals, like really bad. Yeah. I mean, bodies upon bodies. 800 people dying a day. Wild.
Did you guys personally go through this phase? So the day I started self-isolating due to precaution, I go to the market here in my neighborhood, and it was straight up hysteria, chaos. And it was really hard to not get swept in it. Like when I'm shopping for things, I'm buying like canned tuna, pasta, butter, all these essentials, but I've watched as that. I'd like to see somebody smarter than me regarding psychology talk about the stages of psychosis when things like this happen, because now it's like I think we all are over it, and I'm like, man, maybe I'll risk it. You know what I mean?
I think there's a lot of they're having a lot of that debate too with the mental health aspect of it and the things like that. I can't imagine being where we grew up, like in Northeast Ohio. You're stuck inside right now. You're stuck looking outside. Like I can't imagine. I would lose my mind.
I know. Chris, you posted something the post you posted today about tired of doing the home workouts. And for one, I wanted to say, how many damn shoes do you have? Because in the four photo slides, I'm like, man, I gotta get my shoe game on point. You got shoes to probably jump in. You probably got shoes to shadow in. But
it's funny down here in Florida, it's so hot and you sweat so much. Like I can't wear a shoe 2 days in a row. They literally have to sit out and because they're soaked, they're literally drenched through. That's why I have so many shoes.
So the question is, and Corey, you can attest to this because you're stable are all fighters, and Chris, you're a pro fighter. So when you say, are you tired of doing the home stuff, is it more of like the powers that be telling us we're not allowed to go about our normal day? Or is it about just kind of like the cabin fever sort of approach of being like locked down? How are you feeling?
Honestly, for me, this whole experience has not been bad. Quarantine is training camp for me. Like I self-isolate, I social distance, for every training camp of my entire life. And I've been doing this for 20 years. So for me, I've taken this in stride. This is nothing new for me. Training camp I'm indoors. I'm home. I'm not with friends. I'm not going out. I train. I go to the gym. That's it. I go to the gym. I go to the grocery store. Now I just can't go to the gym. So my back patio has become my gym. I was saying more about the mental fatigue and the psychological fatigue of having to push myself in every workout, right? So like I don't have – like some days you go to the gym, and Corey, I'm sure you can attest to this. You got guys who come in and their gas tank is low. And part of your job as a coach and a mentor is to kind of rev this guy up, push him. And also he wants to impress you at least a little bit. He wants to come in there like, I'm not going to be a pussy. I'm going to go do the work. You don't have that at home. I don't have that. I don't have a coach here telling me what to do. I don't have anyone else to impress but myself. So the psychological strain of that, it's like, it's so easy to be like, I'm not going to go for that run right now. But I've been really, really kind of pushing myself to make sure that it gets done and giving myself some kind of structure.
What are you doing to motivate yourself, Chris? Because being a fighter, you probably have some nice little secrets to share with or without Corona about self-motivating, getting yourself up when you don't want to.
Yeah. It's tough when I don't have a fight. There's no bigger motivation than thinking like, hey man, I'm going to get my ass kicked in front of a million people if I don't train as hard as I possibly can. Right. And even if you do lose and you go out there and but I know I did everything right. I know I did everything I could, I'm in great shape. I don't want to have that fear of like, I could have done that. I could have done that. I don't have that when I fight. Now there's not a fight looming. So me at this point, I'm focused on getting myself as prepared as possible. So when this does lift, I am more ready than the guys who aren't ready yet. So I'm in a better place to get to where I need to be. I want to be one of those first guys who steps in the ring.
Corey, how about your guys?
Yeah, I think it's been a bit of a whirlwind for a lot of my guys. I look at back when this happened, like let's say the week of the Corona, like the week that we started to get information. I was telling you, it was a Thursday night and I was told classes were canceled Friday morning. Well, that Friday is when Danny Roberts was supposed to leave for UFC London, which was the following week. Well, he hurried up and jumped on a plane that Thursday, knowing all this was in chaos, to hurry up and get back there. Then that show's canceled in London and he can't get back into the United States. Like, So this is a whirlwind of emotions for him, thinking, why did I just do this? I could have stayed one more day. I might have been able to fight, and then those things get postponed. And then here I'm still in a situation where, for these UFC guys, you still have Dana White still calling out fights in the next 2-3
March
weeks.
March 9th or May 9th.
Yeah, May 9th. It was April 18th. And, in my case, being that it might have been in Florida, Kamaru Usman was putting himself, as a potential candidate to fight Masvidal. He was trying to really push for that fight, still trying to push for that fight for this upcoming card. I had two guys on that card. I had Omar Morales and Michael Johnson were both on that, got pushed to this UFC, whatever it was, 249 card. And, here we are training all the way up until one day before their flight is supposed to take off for wherever they don't even know. They didn't have any other information. They just knew they were leaving the next day. And, then they don't get to go do that fight. Now there's another card. And it's like, I feel really bad for these guys in a sense that, they're sort of forced to go in a roundabout way around some of the social regulations and the enforcements right now to get their training in. And it's like, I'm trying to support it as much as possible, but trying to still keep distance, be outside, do all the right things. But like, I look at it from two perspectives. One, it's extremely dangerous to go train in these big groups and do all these things to prepare for a fight because of the virus. And two, it's just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, to be unprepared for a fight. So it's like, how do you juggle this where it's like I sympathize with them where other people aren't giving them the, they shouldn't be doing this, shouldn't be doing that. Well, I'm like, think about how much danger they're putting themselves in to actually fight another grown killer unprepared. Like, I'm sorry, but I have to sympathize with them on that regard, that I can't imagine the stress and the turmoil of wanting to do the right things because you have family and this and that, and you don't want to put anybody at harm's way, but also to provide for your family or your loved ones. You can't put yourself at harm's way in the aspect that you can't be unprepared for this. So it's a really crazy thing right now. And like I said, we're trying our best. And, guys like Chris, I look at, I don't think he even knows this, but like, I think like as a coach, like some of the stuff that I'm doing with these guys that are at home, like even Chris, I'm sending my workouts every day. I'm sending my heart rate information just to make sure that there is some sense of accountability, because like, if I'm out there doing it, I think they're going to say, okay, well, first of all, I'm going to show him how much better I am than him. And two, at least it's an exchange. So, a lot of these days, the stuff that I'm putting together for these guys, as soon as I'm sending them the message of what their workout is, the day, what it looks like, I'm sending them my GPS data, my heart rate data, so that they know, like, okay, one, he did it, and two, I better be doing it better than him, kind of a thing. So, that's kind of where we're at right now in terms of motivation. It's just a lot of competitiveness. I've been sending out who's done, the furthest distance on the road, the best times, the most reps and stuff like that to the whole group, to just try to keep them engaged and keep them competitive.
Yes. So Chris, do you wear a wearable?
I do.
Yeah,
I got a Polar Vantage V.
Polar.
And I always use the heart rate strap with that as well for all my workouts.
So Corey, I ended up getting the Whoop strap.
Nice. All right, good.
So I've been wearing it since we got back from Cyprus, so the end of January. And
right.
you're the one who pointed me to that direction, either the Whoop or the Polar, and then the Bio strap as well. My question is, though, up until when I started self-isolating and checking all my metadata, I get kind of fixated on my total energy expenditure throughout the day, so like the total calories burned, and I'm finding it hard to replace certain activities. So like at my place here, I got the heavy bag, I got pull-up bars. I don't know if you've seen videos. I'm always climbing things, but I found it really difficult to mimic another human. I mean, I'm not sparring like a professional like Chris, but I do spar a lot.
Yeah.
In having another human go after you just forces the body to burn more energy, and I'm struggling to replicate that energy expenditure in that space. Do you guys is there anything that could replicate another man trying to hit you?
Chris, I'll let you go first.
First and foremost, no. But
yeah,
there are ways to kind of tax yourself. And so, and I talked about this in one of my posts too, just about, that kind of explosiveness, hand-eye coordination, that twitchiness that is so hard to replicate unless you have to do it. You never move as fast as you do when you spar because you don't have to. Right? That's why you get extra sore when you spar in those weird places. So a couple of things that I've been doing to kind of help me with that is where I have to like catch things. So I've been throwing like a wrap and firing out a jab. So it has to be quick, and I have to have my hand-eye coordination to get to that ball. Another thing is I've taught myself how to juggle. So I've been using that as hand-eye coordination. So I still have that going on, the kind of those neural pathways going. And what I'll do is I'll do a round of shadow boxing, get my heart rate way up, and then in the minute rest, I'll juggle. And you think juggling is hard when you're just chilling. When your heart rate is at 80, 90%, and you're trying to juggle, it makes it so much harder, which makes me think of what it's like when you're in a round sparring where you work really hard to get a guy into a position, and then you have to work really smart to keep him there and while you're not burning out your gas tank, right? So I'm thinking about like, all right, I'm going to work really hard when I'm shadow boxing. And now I got to work really hard with my mind to focus and calm my heart rate down so I can keep these balls in position, just like I got to keep my opponent in position.
Brilliant. How about you, Corey? What would you suggest outside of the kind of – because I'm going to do both of those things you said, Chris, and I have my weighted vest hanging over in the corner as well because you love yours, and I ordered one about 3 weeks ago. So,
yeah.
But Corey, outside of the skill stuff for the boxers and the fighters, hand-eye coordination – what would you suggest? Because a lot of my clients who are watching this, they have the wearables too. And so any sort of thing that you could kind of give us to increase that heart rate, maybe your best bang for buck during isolation for energy expenditure.
Yeah, I'll be honest, you actually just said it. I like the weight vest. I'm a huge fan of any sort of external stressor that we can put on as far as ankle weights and light dumbbells and things like that. For the first time in my strength and conditioning career, I've actually tried at this point to implement some shadow boxing and technique stuff, not as a coach, but just the idea that, I know we're very limited to what we can do. So if I can put something together that mimics maybe that feeling of a clinch, maybe we're doing some isometrics for time and things like that, med balls and stuff like that, to be able to put them into a 1 minute, very fundamental, just throwing basic ones and twos, but hands up and those kind of things. And again, I'm not being the coach here. I'm not going to tell you how they look, but I can see things like dropping your hands and keeping your hands up. And, I'm just trying to at least mimic some of these stressors that they feel during these fights, and throw some component of just a mental aspect of putting some fight things. And, maybe it's just a lack of ideas of what I have here and what we're trying to do. But those things have been working for me. And like I said, any external stressor, even things like, we have a heated environment here in South Florida. So the idea of, right now it's 89 degrees and 90% humidity. So putting the guys outside at a given time and putting them under, that condition alone, that's a taxing stressor right there.
Speaking of the heat, I've been actually utilizing a sauna suits too, even though it's so hot down here, because the heart rate goes way up. You're talking about trying to get the heart rate up. I just did a bike workout the other day, and which would have been, my heart rate would have been around the 140s, 150s, but I averaged in the 160s doing this bike workout because I was in a full sauna suit. So the heat is jacked up. It's increasing the resistance, it's making my heart work harder, it's making my body work harder, and thus the calorie burn is that much higher.
So this question is for both of you regarding the recovery component. You mentioned the sauna suit, and one of the things we're working on behind the scenes, my team and I here in Sydney before the world stopped, was putting together a recovery center. We've been back and forth with Corey.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my question is going to be specific, because my weekly routine normally contains the flow tank, dry sauna, and now recently the hyperbaric chamber, the type to where there's a facility here in Sydney that it's the type that you walk in and it looks like you're getting ready to take off to the moon. I see kind of one side who talks about the benefits, another side will talk about how there really isn't any proven benefits. With a doctor and a pro, could you kind of educate us on your thoughts and some facts around the hyperbaric chamber regarding recovery?
Yeah. So I'll kind of go with this question first. There is some very good literature out there showing some benefits. Now, I think when you're reading that, again, I'm not completely versed on the idea, but I think one of the biggest things that people need to make sure that they're paying attention to when they're reading this literature and they're trying to figure out what's right for their clients and for themselves. I think volume and I think time exposed to this environment is extremely important. And I think it's very individual. I think it can be very individualized between individuals. Like I've had clients that would spend 20 to 30 minutes in there twice a week, and we just couldn't get what we wanted out of them. Where if we put them in there 10 minutes twice a week, we started to see better improvement, better recovery, and things like that. So I think volume is extremely important when utilizing the hyperbaric chamber. On top of that, I think when you're looking at any of these modalities, I think you're going to see a lot of conflicting evidence. And I always talk about this. You look at cryotherapy, you look at all of the different modalities you talk about in terms of compression, in terms of altitude changes and things like that. There's so much refuting evidence going both ways. I mean, there really is. One group of study and exercise individuals shows this and pro. It's all over the place. I think if you're really trying to utilize a recovery modality, the biggest thing that you need to be in tuned with, and that can be through heart rate monitoring, that can be through just RPE scales and subjective feeling, is which of these modalities brings you back to homeostasis the fastest, really brings you back to that feeling of I'm completely recovered. I feel like I did before the session, even though you are taxed. But that idea of those things, any sort of modality that puts you in a position where you just need to get out of the gym, sit down, recover, and rest as fast as possible after that training session is the way I typically go. I let my clients choose a lot of times what they feel best with. And I guess it's just one of those things. It's my idea. What can we do to get them back to as close to normal as possible, as fast as possible? And so that's kind of the way I look at those recovery modalities.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I agree with Corey. We spoke about this before. I've had access to hyperbaric chambers multiple times during camps before, and I just don't think I've ever spent enough time in the chamber, enough times or enough volume, like Corey said, for the weeks leading up, to get real benefit. And the reason it's not because I didn't have access, I did. It's just difficult to fit it into a training week where you can get a couple hours in this thing every day, which is not really plausible. A lot of times you're driving to the place where it is or setting it up or whatever. I would rather just lay in bed and take a nap. I think I would get more out of that. Like Corey said, bring it down to homeostasis. Where can I be the most relaxed and just kind of chill out? I really do like ice baths rather than cryos. They're very easy. They're cheap. And for me, I mean, it's the amount of time. It's amazing. I get in this ice bath for 10 minutes. I get out and I'm so just relaxed and brought back to homeostasis. Like Corey said, I can just chill after that. And generally after that, I just want to lay down and nap anyway. So I think bringing me back and kind of getting everything to chill, literally, ice baths, I think, are the best bang for my buck in my experience.
I don't know if you call it I don't know if you call it a placebo effect. I don't know if you call it nostalgia, taking myself back to my football days or what it is. But I can sit here and vividly remember these experiences of two-a-days in college football and, coaches forcing you to get into this ice bath after your first morning session. And those few times that I would have something to do or have to get out of there quick and, take a look around, see a couple coaches weren't looking, run into the locker room, change my clothes, get out of there. Man, that second session of the day, I was wiped out. And again, it might have been a placebo effect. I don't know. But to this day, I know what the research says, but I will stand by that ice tub for forever.
I agree with both of you on the ice tub. Then again, man, we're getting old. I don't know if it's because I'll be 38 next week. And I don't know if it's because the ice bath, I look at the ice bath more primal and it's just more organic. Sure. And having that athletic sort of background, I don't like taking the shortcuts. If there's new kind of flavors of the week regarding any sort of performance or recovery, I'm always kind of weary initially. Mm-hmm. But we were talking about, Chris, you mentioned sleep a couple different times. And I wanted to ask you, and then you as well, Corey, with all this stress, this subconscious stress, there's a writer, sleep expert named Matt Walker, who talks about subconscious stress that will affect our recovery and sleep, things that we might not be aware of. And my Whoop lets me know that my recovery since this has all happened hasn't been the same as it used to be. And I'm not sleeping straight through as I used to be. Are you guys struggling at all with sleep? And if not, what does a normal sleep night look for both of you?
Big fan of Matthew Walker and his book, Why We Sleep. Phenomenal. Really, really. I mean, he is the predominant guy for sleep studying. Since this whole thing is going down, my sleep schedule has not been as solid as it usually is. I am a very good sleeper. I have been traditionally such a good sleeper. I'm an 8 or 9 hours guy every night. My sleep scores are phenomenal. But no, it has not been the same. So maybe there is something to that. And I kind of figured that there's a different kind of stress going on now. And if there's anything that definitely affects my sleep, it's internal, mental, psychological stresses. Training is not really my issue if when it comes to sleep. So I've been struggling with sleep myself.
Yeah. Surprisingly enough, that's the weirdest thing that's been the biggest change through all of this. And again, it's so subconscious, I feel like, but I just think it's the concern of, here I've been a very integral part of all of these fight camps for so long. And now it's trying to find that distance and trying to be there. It's very frustrating because I'm aware that in 2 to 3 weeks, somebody could be fighting. And I think that's part of it. Obviously the situation of just, being safe and family members and things like that being safe. But I had to stop wearing it at night. I just started taking it off. And I know that's it's crazy to think that that's because that was kind of where I was at. But just recently, this past 2 weeks, I've been taking it off before I went to bed because I was stressing out too much about it. And I honestly don't know what it is. I think my relationship in my head was the idea that I'm starting to see these impaired scores and, I'm seeing this detriment in sleep quality. which relates to immunity, which relates to this idea of everything that's going on out there. And I think that's the psychological trickle down effect that I'm seeing here. But again, I don't know, but it's just been recently, I would say these past 2 weeks being locked inside, that when I go up to bed at night, I'm taking it off and putting it down. And when I'm wearing it, I'm stressing out, looking at it, thinking about it. Oh shit, here we go. It's going to be 3 hours. I'm screwed. What am I going to do tomorrow? And it's like, I'm sitting here thinking, you really don't have a ton to do tomorrow. Like, you're going to sit at home, you're going to get your stuff done. You're actually doing less now than you've ever done, but yet I'm stressing out about it more.
Not surprisingly, we have very different mindsets for that.
Do both of your wearables have screens?
Yeah.
Because the cool thing about the Whoop is it's just a strap. There's no screen on it. And I think I didn't choose it because of that, but I'm kind of fortunate that it doesn't. I'd be the same way. I'd be like, fuck, man. Or it forces you to look at the data on the phone, which I don't know if that's even better. Guys, are you subscribing to the sort of pro quo regarding the experts saying what you should be supplementing right now? Like the vitamin D, the vitamin C at a high level, and then from there it gets super. I mean, some people are saying take this, that, and the other thing. What are you guys doing around that conversation?
From a nutrition standpoint, everything that's come out is exactly what you should do when you have the flu. That's it. Okay. It's nothing new. I mean, up the vitamin C, vitamin D is important for your immune system, making sure you're getting enough sleep, and it's everything you're supposed to do. Stay hydrated, drink tea, drink warm. It's like it's nothing new. It's nothing novel. This is the novel coronavirus, but the treatments so far have not been novel at all. It's funny that so many people were flipping out about these things. I'm like, you do that anyway. That's what you do when you have the cold. And that's always been the recommendation. But now, because this is big news, that now it's a new thing.
Yeah, I think you said something to me last week, Chris, that kind of stuck with me about it, and really forced me to start doing a lot of reading and a lot of looking into the literature and stuff like this. You gave me some good examples, and I discussed this idea with you about maybe you and I should answer a few because we were getting quite a few questions about supplements and sports nutrition or nutrition and things like that. How can we help, strengthen the immune system and all that stuff, and or I guess just improve function. But you made a quote. You said, I'm not going to go out there and push evidence or information on the individuals that the experts themselves aren't able to provide for us at this point. Like, we have experts in epidemiology and all of these different facets of medicine that aren't exactly sure what's going on either. And I think that was kind of a big point, that these people that are out there pretending to be quote unquote experts online because they have some sort of skill set and this and that, I think is a lot of bullshit. I think a lot of people are taking advantage of the situation that's going on right now. And I thought that was kind of a really good, kind of an eye-opening thing by you saying that, where I thought for sure you'd tell me this, but you're like, no, it's not something I want to discuss because there's a lot that we don't know.
Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I just got to reset a camera, and that's why edits are good. But yeah, you can keep the conversation going. It'll take me 1 second.
I meant to send this to you, Corey. There was I'm going to mention it once it's all set up again. But somebody sent me this doctor Shiva or whatever, saying we can cure this with vitamin A and vitamin D. I'm like, this is dangerous. Do not, no, that's not right. That's, you can't go out here and say that the government's doing the wrong thing and vitamin A and vitamin D is really how to beat this thing. I was like, that is
awesome, man.
Misrepresentation. Okay.
Yeah. So the vitamin A, vitamin D. So
So I've had multiple people send me this one doctor saying that, the government's got it all wrong. Trump has it all wrong. Fauci's completely insane and blah, blah, blah. He's like, all we need is vitamin A and vitamin D to defeat this. I'm like, whoa. First of all, we don't know. And then, he's saying he's like this guy from MIT. I look him up. His fields are computer science and behavioral biology or something. I'm like, you're not a virologist or an epidemiologist. How are you going to go out and say anything about what you need to do to fight this and how the powers that be are doing this wrong? That's not only misrepresentation, but it's dangerous. You're telling people to not worry about something and, you can just get some vitamin A and vitamin D from VitaCost and you're fine.
Yeah, it's unethical.
Absolutely.
It's one of the things, maybe a good silver lining from this, at least the media in Australia is writing a lot about it, is how it's forcing people, and they use the sales online. You can't buy dumbbells right now online in Australia. Every Iron Edge, Rogue, everything's sold out. And part of my mindset, once again, going back to being just an athlete and how I was raised and how you guys are raised and how we live our lives, is that maybe one day we'll get to a place in culture where we don't have to brag about being fit or in shape, because through this, maybe decades later, everybody takes care of themselves.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it would be a great thing to see. It would be it's one of those ideas of like, it's a catch-22, but maybe having to go through this to achieve an overall healthier population and things like that. I mean, it's a great way to look at it.
I mean,
Yeah,
why would go on, Chris?
I was gonna say, I think on the at the end of all of this, I think there's going to be a much bigger push for health and new fitness and nutrition. And I think it's great for people like us in this industry and a lot of people coming up now that this is going to be something that's in the forefront of everyone's minds.
That's right.
And hopefully it sticks. Hopefully it's not, like, oh, well, forgot about it. COVID-19 was two years ago, so I don't care about my health anymore.
Yeah, this whole experience for me, man, like it's given me an opportunity to realize that, like, I was working at a health club for the last 4 years, basically paying to rent space and then running clients there, similar to like what a tattoo artist would do. But now, since this has all happened, it's made me adapt in certain ways that I probably should have done a couple years ago. So I'm not going to go back to that health club. The setup I have now and the connections I have has kind of like, what does Campbell say? If you're falling, dive. Don't fight it. Just be it. And I wanted, maybe you guys could share some of those things outside of your professional careers, outside of being a high-level scientist and a world champion fighter. Are there certain things that you guys have been able to kind of either reconnect with or figure something out about yourself through isolation that maybe you wouldn't have been able to attack prior to this?
Chris, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so I've never been much for producing content on social media platforms. I'm doing it all the time now because I have time.
Cooking with Chris, I love it.
Cooking with Chris. So I got a cooking series going on Matchroom Boxing, on their IG Live. Which no matter how this turns out, I'm going to keep that going. Whether I do it on my own platform or somewhere else, it's a lot of fun. I think I've got great feedback doing that. But even like the exercise stuff, I never really posted workouts or anything like that, but I've been doing that now too. Doing a lot more stuff like this, podcasting, interviewing my friends. I know a lot of very interesting, smart people. Corey and I did an IG Live last week that was great. It was very informative. We had a lot of people tune in. We had a lot of great questions. And I have access to a lot of really smart and cool people. And I get to talk to them. I don't, like we're all stuck. So like being able to do this and share it, I think it's helped me kind of realize that my friends can also we can work together, easily and do it all the time and still provide some real value to people out there.
Yeah. I think for me, it's kind of gotten me back to some old habits when I did have a little bit more time and when I didn't have so many clients and just so many different responsibilities and obligations. It's very fortunate to have a lot of great fighters and all of that stuff, but to be able to get back to the basics and, just something as simple as, something I used to do a long time ago. I used to when I would wake up, I would just put a task. It was kind of a mindless task of 4 things that I really wanted to accomplish each day that was dedicated towards personal growth. And that doesn't have to be hours on end. These tasks could be ranging anywhere from 5 minutes to 25 minutes. But I've been able to get back to some of those basic things. And, it brought to life this idea that, man, as weird as this is going to sound, I very much enjoy statistics and data analysis and data analytics and things like this. And Chris and I, we have a great colleague of ours, Dr. Gabe Sanders out of Northern Kentucky University, who, I would say for the past 3 years, I mean, he's a blessing to me for the idea that I've been able to lean on him so much with all of my data and the things that I've been doing for these fighters. And it became so overwhelming at times with all of the data points and all of the data sets that I had that, I've really leaned on him heavily to produce a lot of the big picture stuff for me and the trends and things like that. And I've been able to kind of get into the roots again of interpreting data, understanding it again. And, Dr. Sanders and myself are coming out with a second edition educational textbook on data analytics and sport. He had the first edition out himself where, I helped contribute a chapter and a forward, but now I'm being able to sit on the ground level again with him and try to produce this second edition and expand my knowledge in this. And it's crazy to think about some of the things that you kind of got away from. And it's nice to come back, full circle and revisit these things and, improve skill sets that you were once pretty proficient in and you've kind of let them get away from you.
Are you guys struggling with food at all? Are you gaining weight? Because Chris, your book, The Fighter's Kitchen, you got Cooking with Chris. I've always been an intuitive eater, and I don't know if I just made that up to put those two words together, but I've never followed diet plans. I don't count my calories. I don't meal prep. I know what's healthy. I've educated myself what's healthy, what's not healthy. And I know right now, for some reason in isolation, I've been drawn to just eating like high quality beef. And I tell my girlfriend that, I'm like, I just feel that if my immune system is going to be suppressed, I don't know. I want something like high quality beef in my. Is there any science to that, or am I just bro sciencing it up? All right. I've never eaten more beef in my life, man. I order from this butcher and they deliver it, dude. My freezer's stacked. It's crazy.
I'm fully on board for this, Johnny. I'm a big beef eater. I love my red meat. I eat it quite a bit. I honestly, I've been eating it more during quarantine, not for any particular reason, like in terms of health, just because I've had a lot of time to cook and I enjoy cooking red meat and I enjoy eating it. So.
Well, I'd say for me, it's one of those things. Again, I'm more of a do what I say, not as I do kind of person. I can admit that. And I think it's just those blessed Northwest Ohio corn-fed genetics that I have that I don't really watch what I eat too much either. Lift heavy things, do a lot of activity, eat whatever I want. I'm usually okay. I've had to kind of take out the lifting heavy things, so I'm dealing with that a little bit, trying to watch it a little bit more, but knock on wood, I'm fortunate right now that I can kind of eat what I want, and it's not that big of a deal. With
the lift heavy things, man, I've become just, not having a barbell. The only thing I don't have is a barbell, which is nuts. Mm-hmm. So I'm in my unit, but I have a second level and I have a balcony. So I'm fortunate enough when I open this, I've hung gymnast rings and I've hung a battle rope from the second level. So I'm just, I'm doing a lot of like rope climbs, single arm pull-ups. Maybe give the people listening and watching this, Corey and Chris, like how would you do, like what are some good kind of creative ways to test, I don't know, your strength when you're doing these home workouts?
For me, what I'm still trying to follow a lot of what I want to just call contrast sets, and this idea that, most of my guys have something heavy, whether it be a 80 to 100 pound kettlebell, something like that. So I'm trying to put as much strength work as I can in with what they have and really coupling it with a lot of plyometric work. And I think a lot of times with my guys, the biggest thing is they don't have a huge capacity for plyometric work based on the other modalities that they're training on a daily basis. Putting 15 to 25 reps of a plyometric into a workout is pretty taxing on these guys, just based on the idea that they just had a very highly neurologically demanding wrestling session 6-7 hours ago, and they're sparring the next day. So I think it's been interesting to watch that. I think that's kind of been the biggest difference with these guys and how they're gauging not necessarily their strength, but their work capacity is like, now I'm hitting these where at one point it was, we were working 8 sets of triples on broad jumps and things like that. And now they're watching themselves work into like 12 sets of 4, 12 sets of 5 with a good rest break in between. And it's not taxing. They're not beat up. They're not broken down the next day. So I think, like I said, we're just trying to make the best out of the situations that we have, trying to stay competitive. And, that's kind of where we're at. I think most of these people, a lot of people too, for us, this is the first time a lot of my guys have even been doing any road work or any really aerobic capacity stuff, because just the nature of that MMA sport where, these guys really don't know. There's very few of them that have the luxury of being able to have a full camp and not just be called like that, have to be able to perform 2-3 weeks away. So it's like, I really spend a lot of time not phasing them in a, as much as I want to be able to do some general preparation stuff, it's tough because here we're going to jump into a thing. Now we're in the middle of a phase, and now you're fighting in 2 weeks, and we haven't done any sort of explosive plyometric work, any sort of sprint work, repeated sprint. And I'm like, that's the real fight right there. So it's been nice to be able to get them out and get them running some long distance, clearing their head, different things like that. It's just different.
Chris, I need your help, buddy. I got this heavy bag that's my only friend, and give me some pointers, and a lot of my clients and a lot of people who follow me over the last year see me just put up tons of heavy bag stuff. Kind of share with me maybe something that you would add to it, maybe a workout, a routine, or something that's challenging that I could use, that I could do today on that thing.
Yeah. So there's so many ways to use a heavy bag, similar to how it is like shadow boxing. There's so many ways to utilize shadow boxing. And I've been kind of breaking that down a little bit on my daily posts on how to do different kind of shadow boxing workouts, because you do have to mix it up. Most fighters, we just shadow box 6 straight rounds and we just work on what we do. But if you're not a very adept fighter, you can't really do that. You get lost in the sauce, and it's very easy. It's a lot of minutes to be doing the same kind of thing over and over again, or being able to visualize your opponent and what like that. If you're not a fighter, you can't do that. So you have to kind of put rules and kind of sets to everything. So I think heavy bag work is the same way. I start every session of heavy bag using just my left hand for 2 rounds. Just my jab, changing levels, moving, sliding, banging double, triple, quadruple jabs, really focusing on the endurance aspect of that. And a lot of times I'll even switch sides and I'll go southpaw, even though I never box like that. It's more of a drill of lining up those bones and those muscles. So when I hit, I make that contact, I'm used to all those shots. So where I do both ends, and it's more like it's conditioning more than bag work. Because bag work, we don't think of it as conditioning room as a fighter. We think of this as like, all right, we're working on what we're looking to do. We're working on how we would spar, how we're going to fight this next guy. Very little of it is actually conditioning work. And then I think it's also good to break it up where you do straight conditioning, no footwork, standing in front of the bag, and constant punching and mixing up intervals. So say you're doing 1-2s at a moderate pace. That's not killing. I can do this all day. Boom, boom, boom. But then I'll take 20, 30-second intervals, and I'm ripping super hard body shots on both sides. Turning my body, really focusing on my core, like you're doing like a medicine ball throw, and ripping a right hook. Boom. Take your time, load up, ripping left hook. Not thinking about defense, not thinking about getting hit back, not thinking about how long it takes for your punch to get there. Thinking about just core rotation and full power. And going back then to the 1-2s. So it's not a technical work at all. It's a conditioning.
What size gloves are you using, Chris? When you're in the heavy bag?
I like to use a little heavier gloves, not exactly like a fight glove, like an 8-ounce or a 10-ounce. So I'll usually use like a 12 or a 14, and sometimes I'll even use like a sparring glove, a 16.
Okay, cool.
We do one night. Well, I'm going to add this one. We do one nightmare workout midweek. We call it Boxing Rumble, and that's in our gym in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. We wear 5-pound gloves. So it's a boxing glove with a 5-pound wrist.
Jesus.
On it. It's a nightmare. You can't it's not like you're not really thinking technical at all. It's literally just conditioning. And it really kills your shoulders.
Speaking of Rumble,
and that's your most real quick though, on Chris's data, that's your most taxing session.
Yeah.
The 5-pound?
For you, that's the most taxing session. I mean, that's your red line session of the week.
Where do you order those gloves at? 5-pound glove.
Everlast has a brand. Fighting has a product. Everlast has one. They're like I think like 3-pounders, 3.5-pounders, 5-pounders. I think Fighting has one, and then Everlast definitely has one.
Would you ever put the 1 kilo, the small weights in the glove when you're doing that? If you don't have the heavier glove?
I mean, you want to make sure that it's more on like the back of your wrist rather than like in the glove itself, just in case because they can shift and move around. I'm not a big fan of using heavy gloves. I think that it's really easy to kind of pop a bicep and stretch that out. So that's why even when I use dumbbells, like I love the 2-pounders because I can throw 2 pounds fast and full extension. But even the 3-pounders, I won't throw those full straight. Okay. When I throw my 3-pounders, I'll hook and I'll do here and here because I don't like that idea of having extra weight pulling my bicep any longer because bicep tears are very common in boxing.
Okay.
Well, I'll say one thing about the heavy bag, and this is just kind of my 2 cents from the strength and conditioning perspective, and this is kind of something that, especially over this break, people that don't have medicine balls, people that don't have a lot of equipment, we spend a lot of time staggering stances, doing a lot of anti-rotational things and stuff like that. A lot of our power output is medicine ball based rotational movements and things like that. So a lot of these individuals don't have the proper equipment to do these things, to really get the explosive rotational work. Like, I'm sorry, but you can't tell me that there's not some, like, if we're really talking developing rotational power, what better than ripping a bunch of hooks into a heavy bag? I mean, there can't be anything from a strength and conditioning perspective that could develop rotational power as much as setting somebody like Chris up there, feet planted, real fundamental, and let them just rip into that heavy bag.
People ask me all the time, how do I increase my punching power? Get on the heavy bag and rip power shots. Like, it's the perfect transition to what you're trying to do. You're mimicking what you want to do. You want to hit hard? Okay, get in a bag and hit hard. Right. But what if I was throwing weights around? Okay, it's not the same. It's not the same. I always said that with kickboxing. You want a guy to like really do rotational power, throw some kicks.
Yeah, I forgot you were a kickboxer too, man. Jesus. Yeah. So, guys, you probably don't know this, but I first interviewed both of you 5 years ago on my first podcast.
It's been 5 years.
Dude, how crazy is that? 2015, I had a show called The Vision Board. I used to co-host it with a buddy of mine, Tristan. And Corey, you were the first strength coach. And I remember when I interviewed you the first time, it was maybe one of the first ones you had done. To be able to watch your growth and what you're doing now. And Chris, man, when I first interviewed you, man, I was intimidated because I started that podcast, never interviewed anyone. And you were the at the time, the most in your prime fighting, most credentialed person I'd ever interviewed. So to be able to do this 5 years later on this show, this is episode 198 of Ungoogleable. I just want to say, I mean, we were ahead of the curve. We were doing this 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's great, man. I look at all the connections that we've made, and looking at our circle. You brought up Anthony Rumble the other day, and he's been on your show, and I've trained him.
I talk to him all the time.
You know what I mean? And awesome. And how great it is to watch him coming back and everything that he's doing and the hard work that he's been putting in the gym, like behind the scenes. People don't realize. I know there was a lot of stuff out there about, look how big he is, this and that. People don't realize how big he was. He was huge. I mean, I'm talking huge. And now looks 235, just in great shape. His kicks, his punches are coming out. And it's just crazy to see all of that. You've had Dr. Antonio on your show, a colleague of mine at Nova Southeastern University. Awesome. Yeah.
So June's not going to happen, is it?
No.
Damn. No. Yeah, June. He invited me to come down, man. I have a small film team. There's 4 of us. We were all prepared, man. So is that just to get postponed? Guys, we're talking about the ISSN. It was supposed to be June 17th through the 19th?
Yeah.
Right.
September now, right?
Yeah, I want to say like first or second week of September. And again, it's tentative, I think, at this point with just the climate of where everything's at. But yeah, it's Daytona Beach, September 11th and 12th. So, I think it's International Society of Sports Nutrition for the people that don't know what we're talking about. Definitely the premier organization in terms of current sports nutrition and very much application.
Both of you boys are on the board, right?
Correct.
Multi-level,
speakers, board,
multi-skilled guys.
Yeah, I've interviewed for their research journal for 4 or 5. No, actually, I'm an editor on their research journal. Now that I think about it, thinking between them, strength and conditioning research. Yeah, but yeah, Dr. Antonio. I mean, he's been a wealth of knowledge for us. We've used him as a resource for everything. I mean, he's still running, the majority of the DEXA scans on all of my fighters go through him. His analyzing, his take on everything. It's just a resource.
People realize how big of an innovator that guy is. For what he's done with the advancement of being able to just learn sports science.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
the premier source.
It is like he said. Quote me if I'm wrong. Was it 2001 or 2000 that you couldn't go if you were living in the States? You couldn't go to college and major in that degree. Or there wasn't any school offering that.
Correct.
That to me, it blows me away.
He's got funny stories. A lot of the
he's a character, man.
A lot of the major organizations that you think of in terms of exercise science, I feel like they. He's definitely been like a fellow of all these major organizations, but I think he just got to a point where he really wanted, where he just saw this gap in knowledge and data and application that wasn't being provided by these other organizations. And I think that's where he really took his niche. And now I think they followed suit, where now everybody's dedicating a good portion to sports science and supplementation and things like that. But I just think there was such a period there when you look at professional sports and you look at Belco and you look at all of the different things that were going on, and creatine had this stigma behind it that, oh, it's, you know, is it a steroid? What is it? What's the long-term effects? And, you know, I always think it's crazy because
I hate that long-term effect thing, man. We die.
Yeah.
People, we don't live long. Like, we live that much. I hate when people use that to,
right. And I think it's funny because it's like, if you really go do your research with something like creatine, it's the most researched supplement in the world, first of all. Secondly, if you look at, and if you look at, right. And if you look at a lot of the early research initiatives with it, a lot of it had to actually do with neurological disease. There was a lot of research, like a lot of the introduction of creatine into research was, at least in our field, was, I want to say, adolescents and things like that, people that were developing symptoms of neurological disorder at earlier ages. They were utilizing creatine as a supplement to try to slow down the progression and sort of, I guess at that time, combat some of the symptoms that they were seeing. So it's like, it's
Chris,
crazy to think.
I think you told me, Chris, a couple podcasts ago about creatine for cognition.
Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable.
That blew me away.
Out there. I mean, it's amazing how much that item does for your body. I mean, from a strength conditioning standpoint, from being explosive, being, you know, repeat sprintability, for its training effect, for the neurological protection, and also post damage to your brain, it helps in recovery too. So, I mean, when I talk to all the fighters that I talk to, anyone that will listen, like, take creatine, man. It's going to help you get from getting hurt. And if you do have some kind of damage there, whether you know it or not, why not aid the healing process and take this cheap, innocuous, unflavored supplement that's not going to hurt you at all in any way. So it's cheap. I have my parents on it. You know, there's no reason not to.
Yeah, the stigma thing. Chris, are you aware that list that you popped up on, Top Rank, did this list on Instagram?
No.
Yeah, it was said that who is the youngest current fighter that will translate the best to the broadcast booth, and they had all their fans vote, and you won. So
I won. I didn't even know that.
You didn't even know you were on it. Yeah, it was Top Rank. They had you, Porter, and a couple other fighters who do really well. I think he already retired though. But anyway, I can't wait to see you fight.
I gotta look that up.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you fight again. I can't wait to see you behind the booth. And Corey, man, same with you. You're behind some of the greatest fighters in the world, man, and you don't get your due either. So, like I always say when I interview you, Corey, I always say this, and it's tongue in cheek, but man, I'm kind of glad that is right now, because once the people know that the skills that you bring to the table, your experience, your knowledge, the work you put in, you might be hard to get a hold of one day. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, boys. Thanks for doing this with me, man. This is fun, man. You guys kind of got me out of the last live one I did was in a couple months ago. So, it wasn't by choice. This is by choice. So thank you.
Yeah, this has been nice too, man. It's very, it's just conversation. Like you said, man, we go back 5 years now. We look at the evolution of where everybody's careers went and stuff like that. It's fun.
Yeah, that is cool to think about. I'm excited to see some faces too, so I appreciate it. I like that.
Yeah, it's true. I feel like this is the first time I've talked to anybody.
Yeah, right. So guys, I have off the record, I've already done an intro, and I'm very fortunate right now with two younger guys in their 20s. They're film guys, and we're recording this. I got the Sony A7 recording this, and it's not just going to be just the screen interview. He's going to edit and chop it up. So I'm excited to see the magic that kid produces.
Oh, that's cool.
I'll send you guys a final copy.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, boys, man. Nice talking to you, man. Let's chat soon for sure.
Absolutely, brother.
Have a good day, right, man? Take care, buddy.
See you, boys.
See you.